What is up, my Pika crew? This is the ThePikaWu, and welcome to another Pokemon Wi-Fi battle. So today I've got a underused tier match against a guy called Jesus, also known as OctiBP on YouTube. So this is a team that I've used on Showdown for quite a bit, and I really like this team so far, so I'm definitely excited to share with you my first Wi-Fi battle with this team. So going into this team analysis, my core actually isn't going to be Firegrass Water this time, like I have in the previous videos. It's actually going to be focused on a Fairy Dark Ghost core in the shape of Slurpuff, Hydreigon, and Doublade. So this is going to be a relatively offensive core, and the main focus is for Hydreigon and Doublade to take out threats to Slurpuff, and then have Slurpuff attempt to Belly Drum sweep the rest of my opponent's team. Hydreigon deals heavy damage against almost anything with Draco Meteor and can shut down walls with Taunt, and Doublade is there to take down defensive steel types. For example, Mega Aggron is a huge threat in this tier, but Doublade completely shuts it down because of Sacred Sword that bypasses any sort of defense increases. In addition, both of those Pokemon are naturally bulky and have great type resistances. Mamoswine was added to my roster to provide an extra electric immunity, who can also deal heavy hits, set up stealth rocks, and break down walls with Endeavor. My last two Pokemon, Venusaur and Blastoise, are my two defensive walls, which is a defensive combination I've used back in 4th generation underused tier. Now on my opponent's side, he's got a pretty balanced team as well. He's got the Volturn combination with Flygon and Rotom Heat. In addition, the other 4 Pokemon are kind of a mix of support and bulky attackers. I'm not too sure what their sets are going to be. And as you can see, my opponent's packing the Firegrass Water core. But like my team, the team also has a lot of type diversity, and we both really don't have that significant of a type weakness. But looking at his team though, there are 2 Pokemon I want to watch out for, and that's his Snorlax and his Gyarados. The main reason why is because I don't have a specific counter to them. I can shut down Rotom with Hydreigon, I can shut down Aggron and Roserade with my Doublade, and Flygon I can shut down with Mamoswine. Now in terms of lead choice, I decided to lead off with Hydreigon. And the main reason why is it deals with my opponent's potential leads, Roserade and Rotom Heat. I do lose out against Flygon, but my opponent would be less inclined to lead with it, since I do carry the Mamoswine on my team. By leading off with Hydreigon, I can immediately deal heavy damage against my opponent and try to break down his defensive core, and then possibly give an opening for my Slurpuff to sweep. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoy the battle. So I'm going to lead off with my Hydreigon, as my opponent leads off with Snorlax. Now there are a couple of options I can do first turn, and that includes going for the Draco Meteor to deal damage, going for the Taunt expecting a status inducing move or maybe a curse, or just to switch altogether. And what I do decide on is just switching, because I don't want to risk getting paralyzed by a potential body slam. I do have the perfect switch in, and that is my Doublade, because I'm immune to the hit, and I can force the switch out because I do carry the Sacred Sword. So with Snorlax basically forced to switch out, I can double switch right back into my Hydreigon and dish out a powerful Draco Meteor on basically anything on his team. So he's going to bring in his Rotom Heat here, and he can't do much to me because I resist both his Stab Fire and Electric moves, and I'm free just to, dish out damage with Draco Meteor as he brings back his Snorlax. And this is actually my plan, to lure in Snorlax against these Draco Meteors because it can gradually chip away at his special wall. And even better, it deals a lot of damage because I do get a critical hit. And this actually matters greatly because it changes the way I play. Since Snorlax can't be brought in against another Draco Meteor, this means that this Hydreigon is going to be super useful in this match. And I'm basically going on the offensive. I'm going to bring in my Doublade to lure his Snorlax out, and then continue to double switch right back into my Hydreigon. So basically my goal here is to use Hydreigon as much as possible. So you saw in the turn earlier, my opponent actually predicted me and went for the super effective crunch, but Doublade has a lot of natural bulk, and you can see that didn't really do much to me, so I'm not too worried if he continuously predicts my Doublade switch in. So here he brings in his Gyarados on the double, and I'm just going to go for the Draco Meteor just to deal as much damage as possible, and unfortunately for me, this is a huge misplay. The main reason why is if my opponent plays Optimal, he would either go for the Dragon Dance if he's an offensive set, or Thunder Wave if he is one of those unorthodox defensive sets, and that's exactly what he does. He paralyzes my Hydreigon. And this really limits my Hydreigon's use. So I am just going to go ahead and go for the Draco Meteor once more. This time it connects. It doesn't quite take down the Snorlax. And I'm not sure if he can outspeed me because I am paralyzed. And if he does go for the rest, that's going to pose kind of a problem. So what I do decide on doing is if he just goes for an attacking move, I can live the hit with my Mamoswine. And if he goes for the rest, my Focus Sash will still be intact and I can set up the Stealth Rocks. So unfortunately for me though, he actually does get that critical hit on the Earthquake. And looking at the damage, I'm pretty sure I can live a Body Slam. It all depends on min and max rolls. But unfortunately for me, RNG was not in my favor and I am going to get taken down by that Body Slam. Now had I survived that, that would have been really beneficial. Because then I have a basically low HP Mamoswine with Endeavor. And that is very, very deadly. So my Mamoswine gets taken down. I'm just going to revenge kill really quickly with Venusaur. And he is going to be forced to bring in his Rotom to deal with my Venusaur. And that's exactly what I wanted to do. Because I do have a Rotom counter. Which I said earlier is my Hydreigon. And he is going to trick my Hydreigon and give me the Choice Scarf. Which is fine. But I am just going to be able to deal a lot of damage with either the Dark Pulse and Draco Meteor. And what I do decide on doing is I go for the Dark Pulse over the Draco Meteor this time. Because he might bring in his Aggron, which does resist that Draco Meteor. So, unfortunately for me, because it is a lower base power move, I am not able to take down this Rotom. And he is going to take me out with the Hidden Power Ice and Volt Switch combination. So this is kind of a misplay on my opponent's part. And the main reason why it is a misplay is because he basically has to switch in a Pokemon first, and I get that matchup advantage. So I get to see that he brings in his Flygon, and I can basically just bring in the counter. So I'm going to go ahead and just bring in my Blastoise because it gives me an opportunity to Mega Evolve, and nothing on his team really wants to take an Ice Beam. So here I'm just going to go ahead and Ice Beam. My opponent's just going to U-turn out and switch into a Pokemon. He has nothing to take it, so he makes a really smart decision here and just uses this opportunity to bring in Rotom Heat as death fodder. To basically get then a free switch in to his Roserade without really taking an Ice Beam at all. So that is a good play. His Rotom Heat finally gets one last use before it gets taken down. And my opponent now brings in his Roserade. And Roserade is really scary to my team. This is because I don't really have anything that outspeeds it and can do a lot of damage against it. So it's really easy for Roserade to set up entry hazards. And he can set up both Toxic Spikes and Spikes. Luckily for me though, my opponent is just going to set up one entry of Toxic Spikes. And I can get rid of those later with my Venusaur or my Blastoise. So here he's just going to deal damage against my Venusaur. He is a Life Orb set, which is really, really good that he revealed that to me because that means he won't be able to stall my Venusaur to set up further entry hazards since I'll eventually be able to take it down with Sludge Bomb, and with that Life Orb damage, he's gradually going to get taken down. So my opponent knows this, and this is why he's going to bring in his Aggron because he knows I'm going to go for either the Sludge Bomb or a healing type move, and he basically gets a free switch in. And it's a really smart switch in because it gives him the opportunity to Mega Evolve, making his Aggron a lot more useful. But like I said earlier on, Aggron isn't really a threat to my team because Doublade is the perfect counter with Sacred Sword and Swords Dance. In fact, Aggron is actually setup fodder to my Doublade. And if my opponent allows me to set up, 2 or 3 Swords Dances against it, then I can actually sweep with this Doublade. This is why I was actually anticipating my opponent to switch into Gyarados right away to deal with my Doublade. So I brought in Venusaur to kind of combat it, hoping that, I would predict the double switch. And I can simultaneously remove the Toxic Spikes by doing so. But my opponent just surprises me and stays in, again, and rests. Knowing my opponent is going to stay in though, I just bring in my Doublade. I didn't really expect the rest at all. So my thought process was if I ended up mispredicting, it's not too big of a deal because then I can just go for the Sleep Powder. And, but he just ends up just resting himself, so that's fine as well. So, this gives me the opportunity just to bring in my Doublade again, and I'm just going to Swords Dance up and try to scare him out. Maybe after I set up a Swords Dance, he might be inclined to switch into his Gyarados. So, I'm just going to, plan on setting up and just going for the Iron Head to try to deal damage on the switch. And I really don't know why he didn't bring in his Gyarados because it is a perfect counter against my Doublade since it resists my 2 strong attacks, my Fighting Sacred Sword attack, and my Iron Head. But unfortunately for me, he just stays in. So I am going to go for these Iron Heads expecting switches. He's going to stay in. It's going to do nothing. But, you know, my thought process was I shouldn't be too worried because the only move that this Aggron carries is that Heavy Slam. And because I am extremely bulky on the physical defensive side and I carry the Eviolite and I resist the Heavy Slam, I should be able to take a couple, right? So I'm free just to set up another Swords Dance, and this time I'm just going to go straight to the offensive and just deal damage with Sacred Sword. But as you can see, I kind of underestimated how strong Aggron really is. That Heavy Slam is going to be a clean 2-hit KO, while I won't be able to take him out before he takes me out. And this actually poses a huge problem to my team now. The main reason why is because I can't bring in like a physical attacker like my Slurpuff because he's already set up a lot of curses. And the strongest move I have is my Blastoise's Scald, which I'm not sure if I can take down this Aggron or not. So this is going to pose a huge threat because if he rests, then he's going to be at full. But what I really wanted to do was just to go for the Roar just so I can deal with that Aggron later on. But luckily for me, and this is very lucky that he switches, because now, you know, that Aggron won't be able to recover back to full, and he is going to be crippled, and that really limits his survivability. The main reason why my opponent probably did that was because he saw that my Blastoise carried Ice Beam, and he's probably thinking I was more of a offensive Blastoise set and not a defensive Blastoise set. So now it's going to be Roserade versus Venusaur. Venusaur is obviously going to have the matchup advantage because I can heal up, he has the Life Orb, it won't be doing too much damage, and I can eventually retaliate back with, you know, Sludge Bomb. So right here, I'm actually going to predict the switch here as he brings in his Flygon. And this is a pretty ballsy switch because now he's going to be fully crippled. And now looking at his team, I do have this Slurpuff, but I really can't set it up on really anything on his team except for this Sleeping Flygon. And the main reason why is because Aggron can take me down with Heavy Slam, Roserade can outspeed and go for the Sludge Bomb, and yeah, so what I do decide on doing is just bringing it now. Hope that he, you know, continuously stays asleep, and if I do get that Belly Drum, then I finally will be able to activate my Unburden ability and be able to outspeed the rest of my team, rest of my opponent's team, and can sweep. So that's exactly what I end up doing. He actually switches into his Gyarados immediately to get that Intimidate off, so that I will be at +5 attack instead of +6 attack, but at this point, it doesn't really matter at all. So I do get that Belly Drum fully set up, and as long as I don't miss with the Play Rough, which is a 90% accurate move, I should be able to take down the rest of my opponent's team. And luckily for me, I don't miss, and I am able to take down the rest of my opponent's team with the Slurpuff sweep. So that is going to be the game, and I am able to narrowly win this match. Even though I did end up winning the match, there are a few takeaways I got, since I did make a couple of misplays during this match. The first thing is to use Taunt more with my Hydreigon. During the matchup when it was Gyarados versus Hydreigon, I should have just went for the Taunt, since the most optimal move that my opponent would do would either to bring in Snorlax, go for Dragon Dance, or go for Thunder Wave. And in all three situations, it would have been optimal for me just to Taunt to shut down both his Snorlax and his Gyarados. And I shouldn't be too worried if the Gyarados kind of predicts my Taunt, since I do resist his Waterfall, and Stone Edge and Bounce wouldn't be too threatening. Another big misplay I made was when it was Aggron versus my Doublade. And I kind of underestimated how dangerous setup Pokemon are, and I kind of over-predicted against it, and that could have led to disastrous results. Though my opponent ended up switching and didn't end up going for the rest to heal up, if he did, I definitely would have had a lot more trouble dealing with his team. And what I should have realized is that Doublade is my only counter against Mega Aggron, so if I lose Doublade in the battle against Aggron vs Doublade, then that actually poses a huge problem going forward. And I should have just realized that earlier on and shouldn't have predicted by going for Iron Head instead of, you know, going for the Sacred Sword. So that is going to be my takeaways. I hope you guys enjoyed this battle. If you guys did, feel free to leave a like. And if you are a new viewer and you enjoy my commentary, please be sure to join the Pika crew by subscribing. So thank you for watching my battle, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace out, guys.